All right, Cosatu Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks joins us now for more on that conversation. Matthew, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. One of the partners which I believe should be represented, certainly, at NEDLEC and would have been a part of the conversations around this minimum wage increase is the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They have called this increase nonsense, or they've said it makes no sense, pretty much, saying it is problematic because it is, of course, higher than inflation, and we're fighting inflation, and it will cause businesses literally to fold because of higher interest rates as well. What do you say?
Look, I think that they would be best not to drink and make such public comments, because the comments, I would assume, if somebody's not okay upstairs, to be very honest. It's nonsensical to say any jobs will be lost because of a R2 an hour increase in the minimum wage. The minimum wage has been around since 2019. Research by the University of Cape Town, independent experts, have shown that no jobs have been lost, no significant job losses have been lost because of it. It's bizarre for people who are paid millions of rands, captains of industry, as the Chamber of Commerce represents them, to lament about paying an additional R2 an hour to the most poorly paid workers in the country. It's immoral, and it makes no sense. It's not helpful. The minimum wage is there simply because businesses have often failed to pay workers a living wage, pay workers a decent salary. Companies are not going to be productive if you pay people so little money they can't afford the food that their body needs to be productive human beings, to be productive people at work. Again, common economic sense would say, if you pay people so little money, who exactly is going to buy the goods that the economy produces? These very same companies under the Chamber of Industry wants the customers, the public at large, to buy. A minimum wage has been a success not only in South Africa, but in fact in the United States, in Europe and Brazil, in helping to reduce poverty, to reduce inequality, and to put money in people's pockets. An increase which is above inflation helps to ensure workers are protected from the rising cost of living, which hits working class families the hardest. It helps them to take care of the families, to buy food and clothes, pay for transport, to get to work, etc. But also it benefits businesses, because if workers have extra money, they don't put their money under a mattress. They invest that money in the local economy by buying food and clothes and so forth. So really it's a beneficial intervention by government. We're quite pleased they are doing it, because it's going to benefit about 6 million workers across the private sector who are often paid very, very little by businesses.
So I suppose it's the egg and chicken kind of debate, because they are arguing precisely the opposite of what you're saying. You're saying pay them more, you'll have more disposable income, more of your products will be bought, more of your services will be bought, and the business will do well. They are saying, well, currently, people don't have disposable income, so our products are not being bought, our goods are not moving off the shelves, our services are not being procured, so businesses at this point can't even afford to pay their loans back because of the high interest rate. So you've got a problem. They can't even invest in infrastructure to hire more people. So when you are raising those salaries, you're putting them even into a situation where they will not hire even more people.
Yeah, so that could be acceptable if we didn't have the highest levels of inequality in the world. But if you look at what the CEOs of businesses make, it's obscene. So the CEO of the retail companies, the big retailers in the country, supermarkets, on average they pay themselves about R500,000 every single day of the year. Similarly with the big 5 banking companies in the country. In the mining industry, we had a CEO of a mining company fighting with mine workers who wanted a simple additional R150 a month, basically enough to go to KFC. Yet that mining company was making about R300 million in a single year. So businesses would have a bit more moral credibility if, one, they paid workers a decent wage, if two, they didn't pay the bosses so much money. But again, we've had a minimum wage since 2019. We pegged farm and domestic workers who are quite at high risk to retrenchment, to automation, etc., at a pegged rate of 90-75% for the first few years. And research has shown it has not caused any significant job losses. The reason why businesses are struggling is not because of a minimum wage, not because of a 27.58 cents an hour. It's because of the crisis of load shedding at Eskom for the past decade plus. It's because of the crisis at Transnet, which is having a huge impact upon the mining, the manufacturing, the agricultural sectors. It's because of the crisis at Metro Rail, which makes it very difficult for 10 million commuters in our cities to get to work on time. And of course, in many rural areas, we've seen the collapse of local municipalities because they can't deliver basic services. That's the issues that is disrupting the economic productivity of the country. If paying workers a slave wage was an economic model for success, then South Africa would have been the most prosperous country in the world, because that's exactly what the apartheid regime did. But it's not the common sense way to go through it, and that's why you have successful economies across the world, be it the United States or Canada, be it Europe or East Asia or China. They don't pay workers peanuts because they know consumers are critical. They're a critical anchor of the economy if you want them to buy the goods you produce. Who is going to buy our goods if we don't pay people enough money to spend the money?
It's the same argument, though, that I just had now with the Minister of Health, who says, well, part of the reason why they are not advertising more posts for doctors, even though we have a skills shortage, is that they are also forming part of medical officers who fall under the dispensation of a 7.8% increase. And they're saying that kind of increase just puts government out of pocket and they can't hire more doctors.
Yeah, so again, government also needs to assist all of us and assist itself by managing itself correctly. So we had, for example, on the budget table of Parliament in November last year, a 55 billion rand revenue shortfall. And obviously that puts a squeeze on the fiscus and what it can fund in terms of public services like hiring doctors, etc. So the 55 billion rand shortfall was because of Transnet. 55% of that 55 billion rand shortfall actually came from the mining industry, and they're struggling because the mines are struggling to get the coal and other mineral exports onto trains through our ports. So if we can fix Transnet, we would not have had that 55 billion rand shortfall. So we need to fix the real obstacles to growing the economy, whether it's the issue of electricity being reliable and affordable, the issue of our railway and our ports being modernized and efficient, or the issue of local government providing paved roads, reliable sanitation and water, etc. Those are the fundamental obstacles to growing the economy. But the approach of business or some right-wing, political parties saying, well, we'll rather underpay people, that doesn't work. And no successful economy has ever gone that route. If we continue to go that route, well, then we should not be surprised why we'll continue to have huge socioeconomic issues. And of course, we should also bear in mind that South Africa, we're emerging from a painful chapter of apartheid. We remain the world's most unequal society. And if one looks at, for example, the North African states of Tunisia, Egypt, Syria, further afield, etc., they exploded. And if you don't address the underlying socio-economic ticking time bombs of society, a small thing can cause a huge explosion, and then everything that we had built, whether it's from government or business or community and workers, will explode. So we'd rather invest in people, make sure people have a living wage, they can enjoy life, they can spend money in the economy. That's where to grow things. And we shouldn't think we are immune from those kind of ticking time bombs. If you look at what happened in July 2021 in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, and leave aside the political and the criminal orchestration behind it, but it did feed into a sea of poverty and despair and hopelessness, and that's what we need to avoid. We're in one boat together as a country. Business must play its role, it's got a role to play, government too. But pickpocketing a retail worker, paying a farm worker peanuts, making nurses work long shifts for poor salaries, filling numerous vacancies, that's not the way to address the issues. And again, we expect those who are on top, like ministers or captains of industry, to show a little bit more modesty, because often when a crisis because of their failures. And again, if they think times are tough, perhaps they could afford to refuse increases and share that wealth with those who most need it.
Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator, Matthew Potts, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on this evening.